Mr. Shroff, Mr. Ganesh Natarajan, the very distinguished guest here, starting with the dynamic Municipal Commissioner, Mr. Shekhar Singh, Mr. Pradeep, whom I've known for a very long time, Mr. Ravi Pandit, Sanjay Kirloskar, Mr. Ranade. I would really like to first extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Shroff and the JP Shroff Foundation for inviting me to deliver this foundation address. JP Shroff is in many ways is a visionary leader whose dedication to promoting sustainable economic practices and skilling has made a significant impact. Through his innovative approach and relentless commitment, Mr. Shroff has championed numerous initiatives that integrate economic growth with environmental and social stewardship. One notable example of his work is the Kushal initiative, collaboration with Credai, Pune Metro, and the National Skill Development Corporation, which has successfully trained and certified around 90,000 construction workers, enhancing both their skills and livelihood and making them future ready. And this has been truly remarkable. Mr. Shroff has extensive background, including his leadership roles in various prestigious organizations, and has numerous accolades which underscore his deep commitment to sustainable development and community empowerment. The JP Shroff Foundation has been instrumental in advancing the dialogue and initiatives surrounding economics and sustainability, making this event very, very important. Moreover, the foundation has introduced the Sustainability Crusader Awards, an annual initiative designed to encourage leaders across various categories: sustainability startup, green SMEs, green education, corporate leadership, green governance, and individual green crusader. I'm therefore truly delighted to deliver this keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 happened to be the hottest year ever measured in history, in 173 years to be precise, and so will be 2024. At the current pace, global warming was expected to reach 1.5 degrees centigrade between 2030 and 2052. But we have already breached that limit in 2023. Now breaching 2 and even 3 degrees centigrade of warming is a real risk. Even if we consider all the nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, we risk breaching 2.2 degrees centigrade. If we do not meet our collective NDCs, which is the likelihood, we are at the risk of breaching 3 degrees centigrade. At these levels of warming, scientists predict the world would pass several catastrophic points of no return. Crop yields will fall, diseases will spread, and rising seas will consume coastal cities. And these impacts will be felt most acutely and harshly at the bottom of the pyramid. Eroding global wealth, which has been estimated at around $23 trillion, will see decades of gains in poverty reduction getting vanished, especially for climate vulnerable countries of the global south, particularly India. Ladies and gentlemen, India ranked high at the 7th position in the list of the most affected countries in terms of exposure and vulnerability to climate risk conditions. 40% of India's GDP is dependent on biodiversity and ecosystem services. Without taking action to address climate change, as much as 35% of India's GDP is at risk by 2050. Delhi today has been ranked as the most polluted capital in the world, and 42 of the top 50 most polluted cities in terms of air quality are in India. Up to 75% of India's workforce, or 380 million people, depend on heat-exposed labor, with heat-exposed work contributing to nearly half of the country's GDP. India is extremely vulnerable to job losses. By 2030, India will account for 34 million of the projected 80 million global job losses from heat stress associated productivity decline. The Reserve Bank of India's report on currency and finance has just estimated that up to 4.5% of India's GDP could be at risk by 2030 owing to lost labor hours from extreme heat and humidity conditions. This, it said, would depress the living standards of nearly half of its population by 2050, almost half its population by 2050. For example, the 5 most climate-impacted industries in terms of economic activity could comprise more than 80% of the current output, and by 2070 would experience an average annual loss in the value added to GDP of more than US $1.5 trillion per year. Clearly, inaction will come at a very, very high price. On the contrary, with climate action, India's GDP would grow by an average of 1% per year up to 2070. In 2070, this would equate to GDP growth of 8.5% and a gain in economic output of about US $4 trillion. Climate change is impacting all businesses, but only a few are factoring it into their balance sheets, growth plans, and ensuring their futures. To be future ready, business models must change with climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, climate transition, to my mind, is the greatest commercial opportunity of our time and of our age. If Indian businesses do not go green, they will lose a major chunk of their clientele in the coming years. Over 3/4 of India of 2050 and 80% of India of 2070. That is 3/4 of India of 2050 and 80% of India of 2070 is yet to be built. This growth could multiply demand across sectors: power and steel by 8-fold, cement by triple, automotive by triple, and food by double. If policies are set in place to create the right demand signals within this decade, then the capacities in India adds in the 2 decades thereafter will be low carbon ones. This right here is a clear commercial opportunity that needs to be tapped. Artificial intelligence, digitalization, and machine learning present major commercial opportunities as part of India's energy sector. Integrating AI can predict supply and demand fluctuations, maximizing renewable energy value, and improving grid integration. However, businesses must consider the substantial energy consumption of AI, as training one model can use more electricity than 100 US homes annually. Several external factors urge Indian industries to decarbonize. And decarbonize, India must take the lead to be the first country in the world to industrialize through a process of decarbonization. The EU Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism starts, what is known as CBAM, starts in January 2026, requiring emission disclosures, and CBAM could cost India up to 8 billion in exports to the EU, significantly impacting sectors like steel and cement and the Indian economy. The US Fair Transition and Competition Act is another factor our business should consider. In India, carbon markets and taxation are being proposed, increasing pressure on companies to reduce emissions. Regulatory changes will mandate green low-carbon products. With many global companies committing to net zero emissions, Indian companies must stay competitive. Indian companies therefore need to estimate the impact of CBAM and domestic carbon taxation on their business, develop detailed greenhouse gas inventories, prepare to comply with sustainability frameworks, create decarbonization roadmaps, and execute decarbonization initiatives. The majority of Indian businesses see a positive link between sustainability and profitability. A SAP study recently showed that 86% of Indian organizations report a moderate to strong relationship between sustainability and profitability, leading to increased investments. It is critical to understand that green initiatives show results over different time horizons. Some are visible in the short term and others are visible in longer term. But there are several examples of Indian companies championing the sphere of sustainability. Mahindra's, for instance, the company saved over 100 million in financial year 23 through energy efficiency initiatives and is expected to make long-term gains in green product services in coming years. Tata Power has saved over 150 million units of energy through various efficiency programs that aim to increase its renewable energy portfolio to 80% by 2030. Infosys became carbon neutral in 2020, achieving this milestone 30 years ahead of the timeline set by the Paris Agreement. ITC has been carbon positive for over a decade and water positive for more than 15 years. L&T's construction division has over 65 million square feet of green building projects certified by the Indian Green Building Council. Adani's the new Green Khavda integrated power project of 35 gigawatt would be the world's largest. It is 5 times the size of Paris. It will power 19.1 million houses worldwide. It is not just India, the bigger companies of India, but even Indian startups are taking the climate change head on. Log9 Material, for instance, creates graphene-based aluminum fuel cells with a 1,000-kilometer range, reducing CO2 emissions by 75% per vehicle per year. Agnicool Cosmos develops eco-friendly rocket engines using 3D printing, reducing material waste by almost 40%. Chakra Innovation captures up to 90% of particulate material emissions from diesel generators. And Loham Cleantech, India's largest producer of sustainable energy transition materials, is an integrated battery material recycling, reuse, and recarbon refining. And Kheti offers greenhouse in a box to farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, India aims to play a crucial role in global governance, balancing economic growth with climate action by 2047, focusing on industrialization without carbonizing the world. It is also important to say that if you look at the total greenhouse in the world, India's greenhouse gas emissions are only a fraction of the total greenhouse emission. India has only used only 1.3% of total carbon space, in contrast to 17.5%, which would be the total carbon space available to India. India has the lowest per capita emissions. Despite being home to 17% of the global population, India's per capita emissions are 1.96 tons, less than a third of the world average greenhouse gas emissions. Our per capita emissions are one-tenth of the US citizens. But irrespective of that, irrespective of all this, India must take the lead. India must take the lead by being the first country to industrialize and urbanize without a process of carbonizing the world. India today has taken several initiatives, and India at 7th rank is the only G20 country to make it to the top 10 in climate change performance index ranking. We have been able to achieve affordable, just, and clean energy transition and achieve a population scale impact. And this has been possible because we've pushed for renewable energy capacity, which has more than doubled since 2014. We are doing today 200 gigawatt of renewable energy, with solar capacity growing 25 times and with a target of 500 gigawatt by 2030. We've also achieved record low tariffs for renewable energy, which have been achieved. But it's important to say that India is climatically blessed in terms of solar energy. No other country in the world, probably the only other country which compares with India, is Saudi Arabia, which is full of fossil fuel. But as the recent Economist has said, in 2014, it took the world a whole year to install 1 gigawatt of solar power capacity. In 2014, it took the world 1 year to install 1 gigawatt of solar power capacity. In 2010, it took a month to install 1 gigawatt. In 2016, it came down to 1 week. In 2023, there were single days in which 1 gigawatt of installation worldwide was achieved. In a single day, a gigawatt was achieved. Over the course of 2024, analysis at Bloomberg NEF, which is a data company, they expect to see close to about 520 to 655 gigawatt of capacity installed. In 1 year, 520 to 655 gigawatt of capacity installed. Remember, in 24, it took the world 1 year to install 1 gigawatt of solar power. Today, in 2024, we'll be achieving close to 520 to 655 gigawatt of capacity. That means that we are achieving 2x of 2004's a day in 2024. That is the level of achievement the world has seen. And if you go by the International Solar Energy Society, solar power is on track to generate more electricity than all the world's nuclear plant in 2026, then all the wind turbines in 2027, then all the dams, hydroelectric dams in 2028, then all the gas-fired power plants in 2030, and all the coal-fired plants in 2032. Solar energy will become the humankind's largest source of primary energy, not just electricity, by 2040. So what happens is that even if we make all our electricity renewable, if we make all this electricity renewable, that's only 20% of our energy. 20% of our energy. The balance 80% of our energy is what is consumed, is what we call the hard to abate sectors. That is steel, that is cement, that is fertilizer, that is long distance transport. All these are hard to abate sectors. They don't run on electricity. They use fossil fuel. And India imports about 180 billion worth of fossil fuel a year. 180 billion worth of fossil fuel a year we import to manufacture steel, cement, do long distance transport, refinery, fertilizer. The challenge which the Prime Minister has said is that by 2047, when India becomes 100, instead of being an importer of fossil fuel energy, we should be an exporter of clean energy to the world. And you can become an exporter of clean energy to the world because India is climatically blessed. It has the potential to do solar power, use solar power then to crack water, use the process of electrolyzer to produce green hydrogen, and then become the biggest producer of green hydrogen in the world, to be not merely a producer but also an exporter at the cheapest prices to the world, and ensure that you become the biggest manufacturer of electrolyzer to the world. That is the challenge for India. Green hydrogen today is about $4.5 a kilogram. The challenge for India is to bring it down to $1 a kilogram by 2030. Much like India reduced the cost of solar energy brought it down from 24 rupees a unit to 1 rupees 99 a unit, from 24 to 1 rupees 99 a unit by using its size and scale. Similarly, it needs to do with green hydrogen, bring it down to $1 a kilogram. And India has demonstrated this in very many areas. The size and scale of what it has done. It has used the Saubhagya scheme to electrify 30 million households. 30 million households means that you've electrified the entire population of Australia. That's the size of the population of Australia. We've all electrified actually in the last 7-8 years the entire Australia and India. Ujjwala, for instance, has provided LPG connections to 100 million households. 100 million households is the population of Germany. Through Ujjwala, we provided LPG connections to the entire population of Germany, providing a better livelihood to our women. And Ujjwala has distributed 367 million LED bulbs. 367 million LED bulbs, which enabled us to save 47 billion kilowatt hours of energy. What it has demonstrated is that India can use its size and scale to bring down the costs of procurement. Similarly, we've provided a push for electric buses, which had reduced the cost of ownership below that of traditional buses, with significant investments planned. And now, for the new urban development scheme, we are pushing 57,000 crores as the allocation for procuring 10,000 electric buses. We said that there will be no more procurement of diesel buses. We'll procure only electric buses, 10,000 electric buses. And now efforts are underway to establish an export hub for many, many areas, so that when you procure electric buses, 5,500 buses were procured earlier for 6 cities by pooling them together. Now another 10,000 buses by pooling together. And what it will do is, by pooling and bringing down procuring buses together, bringing down their prices, what it does is it makes India the center for manufacturing of electrical buses, not merely for India, but for the rest of the world. And all these examples outline how India has addressed affordability, accessibility, sustainability, and energy security at a scale showcasing real-time climate action. At the international level, India has also played a key role. Our success in hosting G20 is a testament to the fact that India is not only going places, but we were capable of taking others along. We arrived at an overwhelming consensus on the Green Development Pact for a Sustainable Future, which integrated climate action, economic growth, green jobs, and decarbonized industrialization, while advocating for sustainable climate finance for the global south. We focused on key outcomes, including tripling global renewable energy capacity by 2030, scaling up climate finance to trillions of dollars for global south, and doubling adaptation finance by 2025. And the pact, the Green Development Pact, called for an ambitious new collective quantified goals for climate finance. Ladies and gentlemen, to my mind, there are 5 key areas for Indian businesses in the wake of changing climate. Firstly, moving away from a linear economic model to a circular economy. By 2050, India's circular economy could generate a huge market value of 2 trillion and create close to 10 million jobs. This economic potential is supported by the adoption of principles of reduce, reuse, recycle, and this must become a part of our design process, our development of new business models, and our industrial strategies. This transition not only promises cost saving, but also positions India to capitalize on the global circular economy model. The focus area for Indian business should include scrap metal, electronic waste, lithium-ion batteries, solar panels, gypsum, hazardous industrial waste, used oil waste, agriculture waste, tire and rubber cycling, and end-of-life vehicles. Opportunities in a circular economy will be cross-sectoral, and businesses would look at specific initiatives, should look at specific opportunities to drive maximum resource efficiency. Just to give you 1 or 2 examples, The automobile sector can reduce reliance on virgin material and decrease waste through recycling and manufacturing components. Maruti Suzuki is already using over 95% of recyclable materials in their car manufacturing process. In the FMCG sector, the sector generates significant waste, especially in packaging. Implementing circular models for redesigning products and packaging can drastically cut waste and energy use. For example, ITC's target of 100% of its product packaging to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable, biodegradable by 2028 is a remarkable initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, the second key thing is about workforce skilling. India will potentially create 3.4 million jobs in the sunrise sectors of solar and wind energy by 2030. We'll create over 1.5 million in the electric vehicle transition by 2030 and 1.8 million in the servicing industry for sustainable cooling solutions by 2030. Similarly, high job potential exists in emerging green sectors of biofuels, circular economy of waste, and nature-based solutions. India has already initiated commendable efforts to bridge the existing skill gap through various initiatives such as the Skill Council for Green Jobs and the Green Skill Development Program. While these programs have trained millions of candidates, challenges persist in establishing a robust skill infrastructure to meet the growing demand for a skilled green workforce. I'm saying this because by the time we become 147, India will be providing 30% of the skilled manpower to the rest of the world. And therefore, it's necessary that we prioritize the recruit, train, deploy model, and we actually onboard partners where we train people for green jobs. And India Inc. can make the current workforce capable with reskilling and upskilling initiatives. This approach should be tailor-made for specific sectors, and to my mind, going green and skilling is critical. Ladies and gentlemen, an industry-led, outcome-oriented ecosystem must be created to increase the relevance of courses and improve employability. Outcome-based financing can be leveraged to upgrade vocational institutes, retooling vocational education, and upgrading ITIs. The third key initiative, to my mind, is managing the short-term transition costs. Prioritizing sustainability as a core business strategy is paramount, considering both domestic and international climate policy requirements. Ladies and gentlemen, exploring innovative financing models such as blended financing, credit enhancement measures such as guarantees, debt for climate swaps, climate policy performance bonds, green bonds, impact investing, and crowdfunding can spread out the upfront cost, bringing confidence in shareholders. Sustainability can be a differentiator in the market. Ladies and gentlemen, companies need to align their products and services to rapidly leverage the growing climate tech market. Businesses should look at leveraging carbon credits to enhance project viability and generate a green finance source. As domestic carbon markets are established, developers have the opportunity to generate and sell credits in both domestic and international voluntary markets, providing a new revenue stream to support project financing. The fourth key initiative, ladies and gentlemen, is investing into value addition as part of agriculture. And this is important because India is very agriculturally dependent. A very substantial component of our population is still in agriculture. Investing in sustainable agriculture makes business sense, as India's food industry demand is expected to increase by 50% by 2050, while crop yields may decrease by 30% due to climate change impacts. Businesses can play a key role in transforming Indian agriculture to be more productive, efficient, and environmentally sustainable. Moving agricultural employment, and today in India we employ about 45.8% of our workforce in agriculture to more productive non-farm jobs, especially in sectors such as manufacturing and services, will be critical. But we need to develop farm gate infrastructure, including scientific storage, grading, processing, lab testing, packaging. And a huge amount of transport facilities will be critical to modernize agriculture and reduce post-harvest losses. Ladies and gentlemen, improving post-production supply chains by investing in cold chain infrastructure, blockchain traceability, and IoT monitoring systems to enhance efficiency and quality, and reducing post-harvest losses are critical as India faces very, very high farm waste generation of around 500 million tons a year. We need to train people to make technicians who specialize in areas such as soil testing, micro irrigation, drones, sensors, farm machinery, post-harvest technologies. We have IITs, we have IIMs, we have ITIs, we have all these national institutes, but you go into the market, you will not get trained people for soil testing. You will not get trained people for micro irrigation, for drones, for farm machinery. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this investing into value addition as part of agriculture is critical. The fifth key point to my mind is tapping the untapped sustainable logistics sector, which is critical. India's logistic industry contributes almost 14.54% to GDP and faces very high cost and environmental impact. Logistic costs in India are nearly 14% of GDP, above the global average of 7 to 8%. This sector also significantly contributes to greenhouse gas emission, with road freight responsible for 95% of freight emissions, because in India we keep making roads and expressways and highways and not transporting by trains. And India's roads have expanded, whereas the train sector has suffered, and as a consequence of which our logistic costs are high. By investing in these sustainable logistic solutions, businesses can not only reduce their environmental impact, but also enhance their operational efficiency and cost competitiveness. So we need eco-friendly warehousing, and we need circular economy principles. We need to optimize reverse logistics, and we see several Indian companies are involved in this space. Rivigo, Loadshare, Blowhorn, Black Buck, all these are doing some remarkable work in improving our logistic costs. All of them are embracing technological advancement. They are leveraging advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, and automation, which can optimize logistic operations, reduce waste, and improve sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, to my mind, achieving net zero emissions requires a very comprehensive economic shift. Large companies must create detailed short, medium, and long-term strategies for this transformation. This involves specific actions which are more than just planting trees for publicity. Companies must present practical, immediate, and long-term plans to reduce emissions, include Scope 2 and eventually Scope 3 emissions. These plans need to be updated every year to stay on a credible path to net zero due to the accelerating climate crisis. They need to do it for themselves, because India can't grow without export. India can't become a $5 trillion and a $10 trillion economy without growing exports. You can't grow exports without going green, because you will have the European norms and the US norms for green growth by 2026. And without exports, India cannot grow. So what remains a challenge is actually a huge possibility of becoming a huge, massive opportunity. It's a business opportunity. It's an opportunity to technologically leapfrog by going green. It's an opportunity to penetrate global markets. It's an opportunity to actually make a massive technological leapfrogging. When 2 decades back, this possibility of using technology, of being able to make a technological leapfrog and use India's size and scale was not possible. Today it is possible, and it is possible because India's businesses are skilled, they are dynamic, they are vibrant, they are energetic. And if they make this technological leapfrog, India would be able to become a developed economy by 2047 as the Prime Minister has envisaged. Without going digital and without going green, it's not possible to become a developed economy by 2047. India must develop and become a developed economy without carbonizing the world. The time is now for Indian businesses to really take the lead and make India the #1 country in the world by greening and by really urbanizing and manufacturing without a process of carbonizing. And that, to my mind, is both a challenge as much for Indian businesses as it is a challenge for Indian cities. And Indian cities must go green by making these cities for cycling, for walking, and by ensuring that there is public transportation. We should not repeat the mistakes which America has done by making cities for cars and not for people. The American car companies bought over the railway companies and destroyed them. They made cities for Ford and General Motors. India can't afford to do this because in America you have 1,200 cars for 1,000 people. Every family has more than 2 cars. In Europe you have 950 cars for 1,000 people. India only has 22 cars per 1,000 people. India has 75% of its people driving through 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. But if we go the American way, it'll be impossible for India to grow and prosper with green methodologies. And therefore, India must ensure that its cities are made for cycling, for walking, for public transportation, and not for cars. India must electrify all its 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers and create paths so that its citizens can live a better life, and that India's 42 cities in the top 50 cities of the most polluted cities become the #1 cities of the world. Other countries have done it. China has done it. And there's no reason why India should not do it as a democracy. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.